Hello, welcome to this month's GKW Safety Training Meeting. This month we're covering hand power tools. So our course objectives today are to do an overview of OSHA 1926, subpart I, which is hand power tool safety. And for simplicity, we're going to use the word power tool instead of hand power tool to cover this subject. We're going to talk about the hazards encountered by power tools. We're going to look at general safe practices for power tools. We're going to look at tool-specific safe practices, our personal responsibilities for safety, including administrative controls, engineering controls, and PPE, and then we're going to review, then we'll have our exam. So OSHA 1926I covers 5 sections. Each section is covered based on the power behind the tool. The first section is about electrically powered tools. Second section is pneumatically powered tools. Third is fuel-powered tools. After that, hydraulic-powered tools, and then powder-actuated tools. Because you need specific training for each powder-actuated tool, we're going to leave that one out. We also don't use many hydraulic tools in this job, so we're going to leave that one out. We are going to cover pneumatic tools because we have an air compressor, but we don't use many pneumatic tools. Our focus will be generally on electrically powered tools and fuel-powered tools. Main hazards encountered with power tools are when the power sources get out of control. After that, you have projection and acceleration hazard. The power of the tool can cause projectiles. The next danger we'll talk about is dust hazards. After that, physical hazards, mechanical hazards, and finally we'll look at enclosed space and confined space hazards associated with power tool. Electricity, pneumatic, and fuel. Electricity. It is important when using electrically powered tools that you make sure your power source is properly insulated and grounded. Any tool that is not double insulated must have a GFCI connected at the temporary power source. Check your power cords before using the tool. Don't make yourself an easy conductor when you do this. Make sure you're not wet or standing in water when you plug in your tool. Inspect your tool cord and your extension cord for any flaws. And don't use your cord for anything else. Don't use your cord as the handle to lift up your tool. Don't use the extension cord like a rope to pull your tool toward you. Be careful what kind of knots you put in your power cords. Knots can pinch and force the plug to come loose or damage the plug. Don't drape power cords around the job site like spider webs from one place to another. Use the nearest outlet. Don't use your power cords as rope to lift things or to lower things. General rule of thumb is use your power cord only for a power cord. This is an example of a power cord I found at a job site this week. If you look at the power cord, you'll first notice there are several points in the cord where the insulation on the outside of the red cord is broken. This cord should have not been in use. The simple solution is to buy a $5 new plug and install it. Took me about 10 minutes. That power cord now can be used again safely. Instead of using a half knot, which puts strain on the plug and the connection, use an overhand knot farther away from the plugs. This puts the strain on the extension cord itself. The next hazard encountered from out-of-control power sources is going to be from pneumatic tools. But always make sure air hoses are free from any flaws or threats to the hose. Don't use the hose to move a tool. Disconnect a tool, its air source, when it's not in use. Never disable or intentionally jam a safety feature on the trigger or the muzzle of a pneumatic tool. These safety features are there to keep us safe. Fuel sources can be explosive. Keep them away from ignition sources. Don't smoke while you're using a fuel-powered tool. When you are fueling, watch out for static. Make sure it is either grounded or bonded. Grounding is setting the can or the tool on the ground so that there is no static buildup between the fuel source and the fuel tank. When you cannot get the tool or the tank on the ground, bonding involves taking a metal wire or chain and attaching that to the tool and then to the ground, and then can be safely fueled. Watch out for excessive heat around fuel sources, and be careful with any oxidizers around fuel sources. Using the oxygen on an oxyacetylene torch as pressurized air is extremely dangerous and can cause explosions or ignition. To make sure that fuel is in a proper safety can. safety cans will be approved with UL listed on them. Safety cans will be red, will have an auto close spout, will have a flash prevention screen, and an anti-vapor lock mechanism to prevent fuel vapors inside the can from rushing out when the can is open. A power tool accelerating an object, creating a projectile. To prevent this, this tool is equipped with guards from the manufacturer. Never disable or remove a guard from a power tool. The number one cited hand power tool violation is when a guard has been removed from a hand grinder. If you don't like the grinder guard getting in your way while you're working, you can reposition the guard, but you cannot remove it. Always check your surroundings. Don't throw or blow projectiles onto someone else. Be careful about kickback. If a tool can kick back, make sure you're wearing kickback protection. And that brings us to dust. Power tools kick up dust into the air when they are used. Silica, sawdust, old paint chips, insulation, all of these can become hazards which are mixed into the air when you use a power tool. If you're using a power tool that will create dust, use it outdoors or in a well-ventilated area. If you have to use it indoors, use the tool with water to knock down and collect the dust. If you can't use water, attach a HEPA vac system to capture the dust. And always make sure you're wearing the proper PPE, which would involve a respirator and eye protection. Let's talk about the physical hazards encountered by tools. Make sure that you are inspecting the tools before you use them. Every tool that you use must be personally inspected by you. If somebody else has been using a tool, you must also inspect the tool before you use it. You don't know why the person put that tool down after they were done using it. Maybe they discovered there was something wrong with it and put the tool down. Make sure that you personally inspect it to make sure it is safe. Make sure it has a sharp blade or bit. Make sure the cord is not frayed, and make sure there's a ground plug on the cord. Check for all safety guards and handles. Look for loose parts or leaks on the tool. Make sure the switches are in good condition. A switch which doesn't function properly can be very dangerous. And make sure you have all the proper PPE before you use a power tool. Every day, fill out a daily personal tool inspection worksheet. Once you've checked all the boxes, put the date, your name, and the job name. Take a picture of it with your phone and send it to the safety coordinator for it to be recorded. After that, leave the daily personal tool inspection in the job box. And if you ever use somebody else's tool, make sure you are checking their tools as well. Make sure you inspect every tool before you use it. Be aware of physical hazards and make sure that you are inspecting your tools before you use them, because you're not as thick as a brick. If it can cut, drill, or penetrate stone, mortar, or brick, it can do the same to you. Also make sure you never use your body as a sawhorse. Never take a tool and point it towards a part of your body which is holding the object the tool is working on. If the tool can cut through the object, it can cut through the object and then through your hand or your foot or any part of your body. Don't use your body as a sawhorse. Set the object on the ground on a safe place before you use a tool on it. If it has a sharp blade or a sharp end, always make sure you keep your power tools pointed away from yourself and others. If you need two hands to start the tool, you need two hands on the tool to run it. If it has a case, make sure it's put in its case whenever it's possible. Let's now talk about the mechanical hazards you'll encounter with tools. Your on and off control switch is a potential mechanical hazard. An on-off switch, which is unpredictable or unreliable, can activate the tool either unintentionally or when you try to turn it off, it won't turn off. There are on-off switches, which are one way or the other. There's also the constant pressure switch, which would be like a trigger on a drill, which has to be pulled to be able to be used. Sometimes on these tools, there is a lock-on control, which will keep the tool actuated until the lock-on control is released. Check to make sure your tool has one of these and know how to release it before you use a lock-on control. If a tool gets locked on or accidentally started, it can be very dangerous. Never rig a constant pressure switch to stay on. Also make sure whenever you are working that you're wearing proper clothing, not just PPE, which is important. For instance, don't wear gloves on the hand operating a tool. A glove could pinch in the tool switch mechanism. Make sure your shoes are tied. Tuck in your shirt and don't have any loose ends, like the strings that come out of the end of a hoodie. Don't have those hanging off. If one of those gets stuck in a power tool, it can very quickly tighten and pull you toward the powered end of the tool. Tag out and report defective tools. If a tool is tagged out, do not remove the tag. All tagouts must be recorded. Maintain and clean your tools daily so that they work properly. And always use a tool as it is intended to be used. Don't use a drill as a saw. Don't try to use a saw as a drill. An enclosed space is a space you can't immediately exit in any direction. Enclosed space becomes a confined space whenever there is any additional hazard added into it. You are in a confined space. Make sure you have a prepared exit plan before you enter a confined space. Have a space attendant outside of the space who knows you are in that confined space and can check on you. If you are in a confined space, don't jeopardize your air supply. We've looked at general safe practices. Now let's look at some tool-specific safe practices. A grinder is a tool which is often used in the work that we do. Grinders have a spinning blade which can eject projectiles up to 40 miles per hour. So don't remove the guard and inspect the tool before use. If you're using a drill, inspect before use. Use correct size and sharp bits. Don't push the drill. Let the tool do the work. Use both hands if it has a handle. Never drill toward your hand or foot, and make sure you have secure footing underneath you if you're on a ladder or scaffold. When you're using a saw, inspect it. Make sure it is properly maintained. Don't pull the blade guard back. Don't reach under or hold the saw underneath. Let the saw do the work, and always wear PPE. When using a cookie saw, make sure you fuel it safely. Shut it off, don't smoke, check your surroundings, fill and mix carefully. When you're starting the saw, make sure it's on the ground, on a hard, smooth surface. Keep one hand on top, put both feet on the ground, and once it's started, make sure it doesn't continue to spin when it's idling. When operating a cookie saw, make sure what you're cutting is secure. Stand with your legs spread apart, keep a hand on each handle, keep your forward arm straight, and throttle it wide open. Use water whenever you can to catch the silica dust created. Everyone has responsibilities when it comes to safety. Employers are responsible for administrative controls, engineering controls, and providing PPE. Administrative controls limit the scope of the work or it's work done in the office to provide training, job hazard analysis. Engineering controls involves providing workers with safer tools that are well maintained, inspected, or replaced if they're broken. And employers are responsible to provide their employees with PPE, personal protective equipment. Employees are responsible for making sure they use the right tool for the job, to be aware of the hazards involved in the work, wearing personal protection equipment, attending and following all training, and inspecting tools daily and personally to make sure they are safe and reporting any defective tools. So now let's review what we've looked at today. First, we talked about keeping our power sources safe, whether it's electricity or fuel. Maintain situational awareness because you'll be creating projectiles and dust as you work. Know that tools that cut, pierce, crush, and sometimes drop, so don't put yourself or others in danger. Inspect all tools and cords daily and personally. Remove tools that are unsafe or needing repair or maintenance. Tag them out and only use an extension cord as an extension cord. Only use tools that you are properly trained in. Use the right tool for the job. Use the tool as it was intended. Do not rig tools. Do not disable safety features. Keep the work stable. Work from secure footing and balanced stance. Ensure that the item receiving the work will not slip or fall. Always wear your proper personal protective equipment, whether that's a hard hat, eye protection, a respirator, or ear protection is needed. And participate and follow all safety training. So now we've gone through our training. You can go back through and watch this again if you need to review. Know that some questions will have multiple answers. and thank you for participating in this GKW safety training.